chapter today. Chapter, I invite you to take a gentle yet powerful journey, a 21 days challenge to reprogram your brain for success. Know there's a chapter, and not the kind of success that only fills your bank account or decorates your RA Sum A. You know there's a chapter about mind that fills your soul. Video about love, and there's a chapter, the kind that allows you to wake up every morning with a sense of gratitude, clarity, and purpose. Success is not an event, it is a state of being. Chapter is the result of a mind that has learned to work for you, not against you. Chapter, and the beautiful chapter is your brain can change, is your thought can be rewired, your habits can be renewed. It's a chapter, science calls it neuroplasticity. Spiritual teachers call it awakening. A chapter, and I like to call it coming home to yourself. So chapter, what does it mean to reprogram your brain for success in just 21 days? Chapter about mindfulness, it means consciously choosing to plant new seeds of thought, emotion, and behavior. This has a chapter, and attending to them every single day until they begin to bloom naturally. There's a chapter about love, and there's a chapter where you can train your body to become stronger. You can train your mind to become wiser, calmer. There's a chapter and more aligned with your deepest intentions. Chapter about love, and there's a chapter with you a few gentle truths, lessons that can help you shape your inner landscape during this 21-day journey. The first lesson is a chapter, awareness is the first step to transformation. So many of us live in the automatic mode of our minds. And there's a chapter, we wake up, reach for our phones, scroll through other people's lives, rush into our day. There's a chapter, and never pause to notice the thoughts we are feeding ourselves. Not good enough. This is too hard. I always fail. These are not just harmless words. Chapter about love, and there's a chapter as a command to your brain, a signal that tells your neurons what kind of world to create for you. And there's a chapter if we want to reprogram our brains for success. And we must first become aware of the thoughts that dominate our minds. As this, there's a chapter about love, and the first few days of this challenge simply observing your thoughts without judgment. There is a chapter when a negative thought arises, don't fight it. There's a chapter, just watch it as you would watch clouds passing through the sky. Chapter, there is a story of a monk who was asked by his disciple, Master, Mindfulness, there's a chapter, how can I stop these restless thoughts? The master smiled and said, you can't stop the waves, chapter, but you can learn to surf. Awareness is your surfboard. The moment you become aware, there's a chapter about love, and there's a chapter, the thought loses its control over you. Every time you notice a thought that limits you, a chapter, you reclaim a little more power. There's a chapter about love. Awareness is not about changing your thoughts immediately. It's about shining light on them. And when you shine light, darkness naturally disappears. Gratitude rewires the brain faster than fear. Many people will believe success is born from discipline, ambition, or intelligence, and I believe the true foundation of success is gratitude. A chapter about mindfulness, that there's a chapter when you practice gratitude, you are teaching your brain to see abundance instead of lack, chapter possibilities instead of problems. As there's a chapter, imagine starting each morning by listing 3 simple things you are thankful for. Chapter about love, and line flip, there's a chapter, it could be the wonder of a friend, the taste of your first sip of tea. When you do this daily for 21 days, chapter about mindfulness, something miraculous begins to happen. Your brain starts looking for what's good and instead of what's missing. Chapter, a neuroscientist once conducted a study showing that people who wrote down what they were grateful for each day experienced higher levels of happiness. There's a chapter, better sleep and even improved health after just 3 weeks. But beyond science, Gratitude is deeply spiritual. It is an act of humility. There's a chapter of acknowledging that life is not something we control, it's something we receive. Chapter, there is a quiet joy that arises when we stop chasing what we don't have and begin cherishing what we already do. Chapter, gratitude is not about ignoring your challenges, it is about finding beauty even within them. There's a chapter, when you train your brain to be grateful, success naturally follows. There's a chapter about love, and there's a chapter because you begin to live in a state of fullness rather than emptiness. The third lesson, chapter, our environment shapes your mind. If you plant a seed in good soil, it grows effortlessly. Chapter, but if you plant it in harsh, dry ground, it struggles. The same goes for your brain. Chapter about mindfulness, you know, the people you spend time with, the content you consume. There's a chapter about love and the words you speak. All of these are part for 20 mental soil. There's a chapter, choose to surround yourself with positivity. You know, there's a chapter about love and your exposure to negativity, whether it comes from the news, gossip, or self-criticism. Instead, there's a chapter, fill your mind with words that uplift and heal. Read books that inspire you. Listen to music. There's a chapter, listen to music that soothes your soul. Spend time in nature where silence speaks louder than noise. Chapter, there was once a woman who felt constantly anxious and unhappy when she began her 21-day challenge. A chapter, she decided to change her environment. She cleaned her space, lit a candle each morning. Chapter, and wrote down one loving affirmation on her mirror. I am learning, I am growing. Chapter about love, I am becoming. By day 10, her energy had shifted. She felt lighter, more centered. A chapter about mindfulness, and there's a chapter not because her problems had disappeared, but because she had created an environment where peace could grow. The chapter, no, there's a chapter about love. I use become and like what you consume. If you want your brain to reflect success, feed it with peace. The fourth lesson, chapter, small consistent actions change the brain more than big sudden efforts. We often think transformation must be dramatic, like climbing a mountain or quitting everything overnight. Chapter, but true change happens slowly, gently, one step at a time. Your brain rewires through repetition. Chapter, every time you repeat a new thought or habit, you strengthen a new neural pathway. This, you know, there's a chapter about mindfulness as walking through a forest. At first, the path is overgrown and hard to see. There's a chapter that each time you walk it, the trail becomes clearer, easier. Soon it becomes your new normal. For example, chapter about mindfulness, and there's a chapter to meditate for just 5 minutes every morning for 21 days. A chapter about love and begins to associate mornings with calm and clarity. And there's a chapter if you visualize your goals each night before sleeping. No, there's a chapter about love and their subconscious begins to work toward them even while you rest. The key is not how much you do. Chapter, but how regularly do even a small act done with sincerity has the power to rewire your brain. Chapter, Heyman Sunam once wrote, when you slow down, chapter, the world slows down with you. Success is not about rushing. It is about aligning. Chapter, take small steps each day and the journey itself becomes the reward. The fifth lesson, a chapter about mindfulness because peace clears the path to success. Sometimes there's a chapter, our brains remain trapped not because of our habits, but because of our hurts, old resentments, regrets. Chapter and self-judgments linger like heavy stones in our minds. And there's a chapter, you cannot program your brain if you are still carrying yesterday's pain. Is not about saying about love, and there's a chapters is not what happened was okay. It's about freeing yourself from its weight. When you forgive, you know there's a chapter about love, and you release the mental energy trapped in the past and open space for new possibilities. Tem the chapter during these 21 days. Take time to forgive yourself first. Forgive yourself for the times you doubted. There's a chapter about love, and there's a chapter failed or fell short. Speak to yourself as you would to a dear friend, with kindness, not criticism. Then there's a chapter about love, and then forgive others. You don't have to call them or explain, just release them in your heart. Whisper silently, if I set you free. A chapter about love, and I set myself free. There was a man who carried anger toward his father for years. Chapter about love, when he began his reprogramming journey, he wrote a letter not to send, as a chapter about love, and it expressed his truth and forgiveness. By the time he finished, tears had washed away his bitterness. I know there's a chapter about mindfulness. He felt lighter, clearer. Soon after, he started a new business he had been afraid to pursue for years. Chapter about love, and there's a chapter when your mind is free, success flows naturally. As these lessons unfold, let me remind you, there's a chapter, reprogramming your brain for success is not about becoming someone new. Chapter, it is about returning to who you truly are, calm, confident, capable, and compassionate. Chapter about love, and there's a chapter, it is about remembering that you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness behind them. Every thought, a chapter, every emotion, every experience is a passing wave. You are the ocean, vast, deep, and unshaken. Chapter about love, and there's a chapter when your brain naturally begins to align with peace and purpose. Now, chapter, imagine yourself at the end of these 21 days. You wake up with clarity. You speak with kindness. Chapter, you act with confidence. The noise in your mind has softened, and in its place, a gentle voice whispers. And there's a chapter, and this is not fantasy, it is science, spirit, and self-love working together. A chapter, you have reprogrammed your brain not just to succeed, but to live fully. So how do you begin? Start simply. Mouthful, and there's a chapter for the next 21 days. When you wake up, take 3 deep breaths and smile. Chapter, this tells your brain that today is a gift throughout your day. A chapter about love, whenever you catch yourself thinking negatively, pause. A chapter, and there's a chapter about wonderful place that thought with one of possibility at night. A chapter about love, and there's a chapter, and there's a chapter, and are grateful for, and one thing you forgive yourself or someone else. Chapter, repeat this practice daily. Consistency is your teacher, patience your companion, and awareness your guide. Mind to know, there's a chapter, remember, your brain is listening to everything you say, everything you think, and everything you feel. The chapter, speak to it with love, feed it with peace, lit it with purpose. Let me share a short story before we close. A chapter about life, and there was once a young woman who felt lost and unfulfilled. No, there's a chapter about love, and she wanted success but didn't know where to start. A wise teacher told her to know to spend 21 days focusing not on what you want to have, but on who you want to become. So chapter, she wrote every morning, I want to become kind, I want to become disciplined. Chapter, I want to become grateful. She lived those words daily in small imperfect ways. After 21 days, chapter, as he looked back and realized that her world had changed. Now it had changed, the world became different. A chapter, but because she had her brain, her energy, her perception, all had transformed. There's a chapter about love, that the 21 days are not by themselves, they are simply a doorway. Chapter about love, and there's a chapter, the true magic lies in your willingness to walk through it. If you take this challenge to heart, by the end of these 21 days, a chapter, you will not only have reprogrammed your brain for success, you will have reawakened your soul to the quiet. As a chapter about mindfulness, and there's a chapel truth that you are already enough. You will find yourself more patient with life, You know there's a chapter about love and their trusting of the journey, more at peace with who you are becoming. A chapter about love, and there's a chapter you will no longer chase success. It will begin to find you. So I leave you with this invitation, mindfulness today, not tomorrow, not next week. Begin today. Sit quietly for a moment. Close your eyes. Chapter, place your hand on your heart and whisper, I am ready to grow. I am ready to change. Term out, and there's a chapter, I am ready to come home to myself as I and as you do. Remember these words by Haemin Sunim. Chapter about love. When you notice yourself becoming harsh, may you soften. When you notice yourself rushing, there's a chapter about mindful, and there's a slow down. When you notice yourself doubting, there's a chapter about love and their trust that, may you trust that everything unfolds in its perfect time. You don't have to move mountains to change your life. Chapter, you only have to move your mind one gentle thought at a time. Take the 21 days challenge. There's a chapter, and watch how your inner world blossoms into peace, clarity, and success. Because when your mind changes, there's a chapter, your entire life follows. Thank you for listening, for showing up, and for being willing to grow. There's a chapter about love, and there's a chapter, I wish you strength for your journey, light for your mind, and peace for your heart. There's a chapter about love, and there's a chapter, good luck on your 21-day challenge made the beginning of a lifetime of inner success. And remember, chapter, your brain listens, your heart knows, and your soul is already free. Thank you.